Viewer contributions make local programming possible on WNIN. Become a member of WNIN with your contribution so we can continue to make this programming available. Visit WNIN.org and click on the donate button.
The 2025 Kentucky General Assembly session wrapped up last week. We'll talk with Kentucky State Senator Robby Mills of Henderson, Kentucky State Representative DJ Johnson of Owensboro, and JT Payne of Henderson about the highlights. That's coming up next. WNIN Lawmakers starts right now. Welcome to WNIN Lawmakers. I'm Noah Alatza, Chief Communications Officer for the University of Evansville. We'll speak to our guest from Kentucky in just a moment. But first, let's hear from Indiana Public Broadcasting's Brandon Smith about what's been happening this week at the Indiana State House.
Some lawmakers had tried for years to get the House to approve a bill making school board candidates declare a political party. The measure, narrowly approved by the House, requires those candidates to put a political label on the ballot next to their name: Democrat, Republican, Independent, or nonpartisan. Obscene performances are illegal under Indiana law, defined as catering solely to sexual interests and without any literary, artistic, political, or scientific value. House Republicans approved a bill that bans state and local governments from hosting or funding such performances and gives anyone the right to sue a government unit to stop a performance they think might be obscene. And a bill headed to the governor's desk bans transgender women from competing in collegiate athletics. The Senate approved the bill after Republicans rejected an amendment that would have protected college athletes from undergoing invasive genital examinations as part of the ban. For Indiana Public Broadcasting, I'm Brandon Smith at the State House.
We're now joined by Kentucky State Senator Robby Mills of Henderson and Kentucky State Representative DJ Johnson of Owensboro, along with JT Payne of Henderson. Thank you all so much for being here. We appreciate you.
Thank you. Yeah.
So first wanted to get your kind of overall sense of the tenor of the session that took place this year.
Yeah,
How did it go?
I feel like we had a great session. I mean, short session, everything really gets packed in. A lot of times we try to do too much in a short session, and I feel like we kind of hit our stride, addressed some of the main things that we need to address, talked about lowering our income tax, which we've done several sessions in a row. So I think we had a great session.
I would go along with that. It's interesting, the dynamic of a short session, in that you have priorities that you want to get through. Every legislator has their individual priorities that they want to accomplish in the session, and you start off thinking you've got all the time in the world, and then 2 weeks into it, you're going, oh my gosh, we only have 2 weeks left. And you start looking at where you are in the priorities. But as it turns out, when we got to the last day, I think everybody generally felt pretty good about where we were at the end of the session, to the point where we even got to go home and watch the UK game.
And that's the best part.
That's right.
That's the best part. So walk me through the breakdown of Democrats versus Republicans in not only the Senate and the House as well.
Yeah, in the House of Representatives, we have 80 Republicans and 20 Democrats.
Is that considered a supermajority for viewers at home who might not know?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. Walk me through then, of course, you guys are working with a Democratic governor. How is it like working with Governor Beshear?
Yeah. I mean, pretty disconnected, to be honest with you. He does not visit much with legislative leaders. And we try to, function as a third branch, a different branch of the government. But there are some places that we have worked well together with his transportation committee. We're obviously trying to build the I-69 bridge, and those efforts we've worked almost lockstep and barrel with those efforts to help Northwest Kentucky. So he has some good aides that we're able to pick up the phone and call and reach out to him. So all in all, it's fairly workable, but we are two separate branches of government, obviously.
Sure.
And I'll say that, there were about 1,200 bills that were filed in this legislative session. A couple of hundred made it across the finish line, and Governor Beshear only vetoed approximately 30 of those. So I do think that a lot of the issues that we're working on are bipartisan measures and gain support from both sides of the aisle. So even though we are a supermajority, we're definitely looking at what's best for Kentuckians and working for that.
Okay, and I know we'll talk about some of those vetoes in just a little bit. Well, let's get into some of the bills then that were signed in. I know Kentucky passed this bill, at least, that will reduce the state income tax from 4% down to 3.5% beginning next year. What are the pros and cons of reducing the income tax?
I certainly don't see very many cons at all.
I agree.
When we're able to keep money in the pockets of people that are hardworking Kentuckians, I think that's a win-win for everyone. And you look at the Kentucky Chamber of Commerce, they identified this as their #1 issue for the session. It was the first piece of legislation that both chambers passed. So we were, it was one of our top priorities, and Kentucky has done this in a very responsible manner where we've lowered a 0.5 percentage point at a time, only once certain revenue triggers were met. And it's really got national attention the way that this has been organized, and Kentucky has gotten a lot of credit, and we've seen our tax base grow. We've seen a lot of economic development. So, and a lot of that's to credit for measures like House Bill 1.
So, for the record, no cons associated with decreasing the state income tax.
Honestly, we haven't seen any yet.
Okay.
I don't believe we have. I'm sure somebody can say something. If they look hard enough, they'll find something they don't like. But the measured process that we're using is really the key to what's working in this. We've seen what other states have done and seen where they've maybe gone in a direction that ended up badly for them. Mm-hmm. And we've made it a point that we're going to have a process where we don't fall off of a cliff. Sure. And I think we're seeing through the economic development aspect of it, the revenue growth, that it's a plan that's working.
Yeah, this is our fourth step down. So, a lot of people, even Mississippi just recently totally eliminated their income tax. And it's going to be interesting to see how that works out. We've been warned by multiple people. Tax Foundation has been kind of consulting with the legislature about that. And this measured approach is something that we're 100% committed. The House and the Senate are committed to this effort. As every session we come in, we lower the income tax, and that's what we've done the last 4 or 5 years.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that historical context.
Yeah.
I know that's very important, especially for viewers at home who might not be aware. Wanted to continue to move on. SB 4, this one increases oversight on using AI in state government and in elections. Yeah. What are some of the concerns about the use of AI?
Well, I think, the bad things you hear about AI are kind of like these deep fakes. If people aren't familiar with that, it's kind of like putting somebody's head on another body online. Those are concerns with AI. We had a task force last session that kind of worked through all of the wonky parts of AI, and it pretty much is seeping into all levels of business and culture. And we just want to make sure that that state government is using AI properly, that people aren't being misrepresented in election ads or election commercials and things of that nature. So Senate Bill 4 just kind of put parameters around, put a framework around how we might, regulate AI in the future around elections and how state government uses it. It didn't get into going into how big corporations might use AI. But I think as it grows and as it comes out of how people use it, I think there'll be some opportunities and need for regulation even more than this framework was. So.
Sure, and we know it's rapidly changing by the day.
Absolutely.
We'll move on now. This is SB 202, gives the Department of Alcoholic Beverages Control authority over cannabis-infused drinks and limits sales to people over 21. How are these products even allowed in the first place?
Well, it started, I guess the short answer to that is that there was a federal regulation, federal decision that allowed it, and basically it was dumped in our laps virtually overnight in the political world as to how we were going to regulate this. And I think 202 basically reached the point we came to the conclusion that we needed something that's already in place. There's a structure already in place, and it is something that I'm not sure what the right term is. I will say mind-altering, but that's probably not completely accurate. But it does impair your senses to some extent. And ABC seemed the place to go that had the structure in place that we could react quickly and also do something effectively.
Yeah, I think it's like, most products that you see, emerging products, you've got people that want to do it right and then people that are bad actors. And I think we've got some bad actors out there that, that are putting in the unknown quantity of THC in these drinks, and then the THC is getting put in certain bottles, and the way it reacts with the plastic and the bottle, it increases the toxicity of that beverage. So it just is something that we need to regulate, as DJ said, and hopefully we'll get, in the future, you'll know that these drinks are at least quasi-safe, and it's not the wild, wild west. And I think you'll probably see us come back session after session here for a couple of years and kind of refine whether that's legal and what toxicity is legal.
And I'll add too that, it's very important for us as well to add some of this regulation that's going to keep it out of just like a regular old gas station where a minor might have more access to these types of products. So, protecting that demographic as well. And we've seen that even with vapes and other things that, we definitely don't want that to be a rabbit hole that we go down.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll move on now. We know that the age for a driver's permit was reduced to 15. So when is this effective, and what was kind of the reasoning for lowering the age?
Yeah, so it did have an emergency clause on it. So it did take effect immediately upon signature from the governor. This was a bipartisan piece of legislation that's gotten a lot of attention from especially young folks. My primary career is an assistant principal at Henderson County High School, and a lot of the students there have had a lot of buzz about this issue. And really the primary reason for House Bill 15 is we're trying to be competitive with other states. It allows students to have a full year of being in their instructor's permit. We're the only state south of Delaware that was 16, except there was one exception to the 15, and that's Arkansas, and they are 14. So, so we're really just trying to be more competitive with other states. And you think about such an influential time in a student's life during that junior year of high school when they can be involved in extracurriculars and have after-school jobs to save for college. And this is going to allow them to get there 6 months quicker, which may not seem like a lot to us, but to them, it's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, we didn't realize we were such outliers, I don't think.
Right.
I mean, on this age. So I know there's a pretty good backlog of people signing up to take the driver's test now, and I think that'll be something we'll have to work through over the next several months. So.
Yeah, I would say that it's funny that we had two high school groups that I was connected with come through on tours the day that we voted for it in the House, and that was. They didn't care about the Capitol building. They didn't care about taxes. They didn't care about it. All they cared about was House Bill 15.
That's awesome.
I had a student come up to me and say, Mr. Payne, I can't believe you voted for that bill that lowers the driver's age. And I said, well, you must be 16 years old. And they said, well, how'd you know? And I said, because you're the only one that would be upset.
Yeah, at that age, 6 months
because they missed it.
Is a lifetime, for sure.
They were very opinionated about that. There were some of the students were like, what were you thinking? I said, well,
and what a great opportunity for our young people to be involved in the process.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about some of the bills that Governor Beshear vetoed, but the legislature ended up passing anyway. The first one, HB 4, this limited secondary educational institutions from promoting diversity, equity, and inclusion activities. And we know that this is also a topic, at the federal, national political level as well. Why do you think that there is still this nationwide push to restrict some of these DEI activities?
Well, I think in general, and I think this is more of a national than just a Kentucky specific, but I think you've seen the basing of scholarships and employment and things like that based on race and not on as much, the ability of a person to do the job. And I think ultimately, the general public wants to see things, people judged by their character, not by their color. And that's the main point that comes through these DEI, conversations. I think everybody needs to have opportunity to grow and to be educated. I just think that when you're looking at scholarships and admission, it should be based on somebody's character and their test scores and things and not their race.
And I think as a member of the House Post-Secondary Education Committee, when we look at issues like this that tend to get very emotional, I think it's important to look into the facts and to look into data to help us, to advise our decision making. And when we look at DEI initiatives in just the state of Kentucky alone, it was over $10 million were spent in DEI salaries. But when we look at in-state low-income minority students, the enrollment has actually decreased.
Wow.
So the demographic of student that these DEI initiatives were supposed to serve, turns out that they're actually not increasing in those metrics. So I think it's an important opportunity for us to step back and say, how can we serve all demographics of students, and how can we be effective with taxpayer dollars in our public institutions? And I definitely think this is a step in the right direction, and there were a lot of compromises made, even to the point where our public universities and colleges were neutral on the bill this session. So I think that's an important thing to note.
Let's talk about HB 495. So this was originally about mental health issues, but amendments have been added banning state funds from being used for conversion therapy for minors. It also now prohibiting Medicaid funds being used for transgender care. Why is this such an important thing, do you think, to add?
Yep. Go ahead, Jay.
Well, I would say that we have a responsibility for being good stewards, and we generally don't approve funding for medical procedures that aren't medically necessary. And I think that's kind of where this went to. And I would defer a little bit to Senator Mills, but I think that was the first thought about it.
Yeah, I think, once again, this is a national cultural issue that is focused around, what some people would call gender affirming care. And I think this is a right and a left issue, but in Kentucky in particular, I think it's probably an 80-20 issue that we believe that parental rights should trump, and that, children under 18 should be cared for by their parents, and that people outside their parental oversight shouldn't be able to, pull somebody to one opinion or another to a point where they might be taking drugs or having conversations that the parents don't agree with. So I think over 18, that the discussions about gender is a totally different situation. I think you'd find many people say when you're over 18, do what you want to do. But when you're a child, we shouldn't be funding it with Medicaid funds, and we shouldn't be encouraging somebody to overcome parental rights.
Wanted to ask quickly, what do you guys think were some of the highlights of this session? If it's something that you took away from the past session.
I'll throw one out that I think is as a sleeper accomplishment we have, and that's something called the Medicaid Oversight and Advisory Board. And no one's heard of this yet. It was in House Bill 695, and it's going to set up what the term says. It's going to set up an advisory board and an oversight board on our Medicaid program, which is so far has been non-existent. And we're not trying to rewrite the Medicaid program or slash it or anything like that. We just have a responsibility as legislators for oversight of the funding that we allocate. And I think that the Medicaid Oversight Board is going to be one of those things that in 2 or 3 years we're going to look back on and go, yeah, that was a good idea.
A couple of pieces of legislation I'm very proud of. Number one, Senate Bill 77. Senate Bill 77 was an issue that I worked closely on this session with several others. And in Kentucky, there is a statute that says if you're a comprehensive university, so not UK or U of L, then you have to go through the legislature for approval of any kind of doctoral program. And we've seen a lot of politicizing of our institutions trying to bring different initiatives. WKU came to the table this year for PhD programs. Eastern Kentucky brought a proposal for a medical school, DO school, and Murray State in the far west brought a proposal for a school of veterinary medicine. Senate Bill 77 just removes that statute and says they have to go through the Council for Post-Secondary Education for approval, just like UK or U of L was. So it kind of levels that playing field for our institutions. The second one, and I'll kind of set up Senator Mills, because I'm sure this is a piece he wants to talk about, but is House Bill 546. Some added language to that allows for the I-69 river crossing Ohio River crossing to continue moving forward. It releases $150 million in funds for that project, and Senator Mills was a huge leader in that piece of legislation. It's going to have generational impact on this community.
Yeah, we believe in that bill really sets the wheels rolling to where Kentucky will be able to fully fund their portion of the bridge portion of the I-69 bridge. So we're really excited about that. Another couple things I might touch on, that these are issues that states, Indiana has the same concerns. Energy, we're short of energy. We don't have enough energy with AI and data centers coming on. Energy has been a big conversation that I've been involved in for the last 3 years, and we did a small energy bill that helps the small coal miners in coal mines in eastern Kentucky. And then also I'll tag along with what DJ said. Medicaid, we really don't know what Medicaid's going to do if the federal government cuts Medicaid reimbursements to the state. We're talking billions of dollars. So we really are somewhat paralyzed until we see what the federal government is going to do with Medicaid funding in order for us to do any other large projects in the state.
Sure. We know there's a lot going on in Washington, and I wanted to quickly speak with you all about some of the implications of those federal decisions. We know just this week that the president announced extensive tariffs. Both of Kentucky's United States senators, Mitch McConnell, Rand Paul, voicing basically that they would like to rescind tariffs on Canadian products and voting against some of those president's tariffs. Your thoughts on those tariffs?
I'll start off on that one. It has historically been on the conservative side that we don't like tariffs. I would amend that just slightly to say I don't like one-sided tariffs. And the one thing the president is correct about is that other countries place tariffs on us. I mean, at the drop of a hat, they'll place a tariff on us, but we don't seem to be able to respond in any way in kind. And I think what he's trying to do is level the playing field. I don't think long-term we need to be doing them forever. But I think we need to let the rest of the world know that them getting to do whatever they want and then us just going to take it, those days are over. And so I'm happy with a short-term plan, hoping it doesn't last very long.
I mean, I'd just say this kind of a once-in-a-lifetime maybe reset of how the world trades with one another. And I'm hopeful that it doesn't cause economic harm. But I can definitely see President Trump's position on it, and certainly didn't like what the stock market did the last couple of days. But I think you'll see that our stock market ebbs and flows more than it's ever has, and I think this is just hopefully it'll level back out.
Yeah, I think 3 words sums it up: time will tell.
Yeah, I think it's good.
I'm just curious, what's your message to constituents at home who might be watching that are seeing the stock market fall significantly? They're concerned that the price of certain goods and commodities, particularly cars, groceries perhaps, could be going up. What do you tell those people at home who might be concerned and are watching right now?
I think we need to do everything we can to keep prices low and to keep things affordable. And I think you see so many things in our society. We have cultural problems, and it's because it's hard for one person, for a male or female, to make enough money to, take care of their household. And we've got child care problems, we've got workforce problems. All of that is driven by the high cost of goods. And I think we've got to continue to look at how we can do that. One of the things that drives costs on almost everything is energy. And when we stop burning coal, we stop taking coal out of the ground, and having a base load generation that is affordable and even cheap in world standards, and it raises costs on everything. When we're talking about renewables and wind, when energy used to be 20 or 30% less than what it is now, that all goes into manufacturing, goes into price of eggs and milk and everything else.
I would just add to that, and
Go ahead.
I'll come back. Sorry, JT, but the tariffs are an economic factor. There's no, without question, that's true. But they're not in a vacuum. Everything, like Senator Mills just said, with the energy cost, all of those factors are going to impact whether or not we have inflation or to what extent. So, again, what JT said was probably a pretty good 3-word phrase there. Time will tell.
Sure.
And I think it's important to tie it back to our roles as state legislators. You know, in Kentucky, I think we've done an exceptional job, not to get too far down the federal rabbit hole, but I mean, we have reduced regulation. We've brought business-friendly practices. We've tried to keep money in the pockets of citizens. We've invested in housing and energy and infrastructure, and those are the things that are going to keep prices down. So I hope that maybe the federal administration will look to our supermajority legislature as a model for what can be done across the country.
And with the 2 minutes I have left with you all, we're hearing the rain. We've heard the heavy rain over our studios right here. Obviously, we know Kentucky, really the entire tri-state being hit pretty hard right now with some powerful storms. Several in the Trump administration suggesting that FEMA should be eliminated. How do you feel about that? And can states, do you feel, respond well enough on their own to natural disasters? We know particularly Western Kentucky has been hit hard over the last couple of years.
You know, I think there's a place for FEMA, but I tell you, I think FEMA's probably gotten too big. And we always find out, I'm a local government guy, things run better when local people are spending money. And I think if federal government's going to help in disasters, that as soon as the money could get to local city or county officials, they're going to know how to spend that money a lot better than a bureaucrat that flies in from Washington or somewhere. So I think we need FEMA, but maybe in a scaled down manner.
Yeah, we've got to be more efficient figuring out how to get those dollars down to the local level, like Senator Mills said, in a much quicker fashion.
I would say just very briefly, I think the right way to say that is that FEMA in its current configuration probably needs to go away. But do we need some kind of federal program, federal agency? Sure, we're going to need that. But I'm not sure that the current FEMA is doing its job. And it may not go away, but it certainly needs to be revamped.
Thank you all so much for making time for us today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Next week, we'll be joined by Indiana State Representative Alex Burton. I'm Noah Alatza, Chief Communications Officer for the University of Evansville. Thanks for watching WNIN Lawmakers.